The dust tasted like death. Sergeant James Bennett pressed his face against the dirt as the world exploded around him. The IED had turned the convoy's lead Humvee into a fireball of twisted metal and screaming men. His ears rang with a high-pitched whine that swallowed every other sound. Smoke and sand choked the air. Somewhere in the chaos, someone was crying for their mother. Cole forced himself up. His training screamed through the haze of shock. Check your weapon. Count your men. Assess the threat. Move. The Taliban were firing from the ridgeline 400 meters north. Muzzle flashes sparked like angry stars against the gray rock. Rounds kicked up dirt geysers in the road. Cole's M4 carbine felt like an extension of his arms as he returned fire. 3 round bursts. Controlled. Precise. The way they drilled it at Fort Bragg 1,000 years ago. That's when he saw Martinez. Private First Class Juan Martinez lay 20 feet from the burning vehicle. His left leg bent at an impossible angle. Blood soaked through his desert camouflage in a spreading dark stain. The kid's face had gone the color of old paper. His eyes found Cole's across the killing ground. Sarge. The word barely carried over the gunfire. Cole didn't think. Thinking got people killed. He moved. The sprint across open ground took 3 seconds that stretched into eternity. Bullets cracked past his head like invisible wasps. He felt the heat of one round pass so close it burned the air next to his ear. Then his hands were on Martinez's vest. He dragged the wounded soldier behind the burned-out hulk of the Humvee. Martinez screamed. The sound cut through even the ringing in Cole's ears. High and tight, Marine, Cole said. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. He pulled the tourniquet from Martinez's own kit, wrapped it above the mangled leg, twisted the windlass rod. The bleeding slowed to a trickle. You're going home, I promise. Martinez's hand grabbed Cole's sleeve. The kid's fingers shook. Johnson and Williams? Cole didn't look back at the burning vehicle. He already knew. The explosion had been too close. Too hot. Nobody survived a fireball like that. Don't think about them now, Cole said. He keyed his radio with blood-slick fingers. Black Hawk 6, this is Eagle 2-1. IED strike, 1 urgent surgical. Grid 4-1 Sierra Papa Romeo 734-28901. Taking fire from North Ridge 400 meters. The voice that came back was calm, professional. Roger Eagle 2-1, medevac inbound, ETA 12 minutes. 12 minutes. Cole checked his magazine, half empty. He slapped in a fresh one and laid down suppressing fire. The Taliban rounds came slower now. They were pulling back, probing, testing, waiting to see if the Americans would break. Cole Bennett had never broken. Not in jump school, not in ranger training. Not in the Hindu Kush Mountains, where the air got so thin, your lungs burned with every breath. He wasn't about to start now. The medevac Blackhawk came in low and fast. Rotor wash threw up a sandstorm that turned the world brown. Cole covered Martinez's body with his own as the crew chief and medic sprinted out. They loaded the wounded private onto a stretcher with moves that looked like a choreographed dance. Martinez grabbed for Cole's hand one last time. Sarge, promise me. Promise you'll get me home. Already done, son. Cole squeezed the kid's fingers. Already done. The Black Hawk lifted off in a hurricane of dust and noise. Cole watched it disappear into the gray sky. Then he turned back to the burning Humvee, to Johnson and Williams, to the 2 promises he couldn't keep. The mission report would call it a tactical success. 1 wounded, 2 KIA enemy, force repelled, objective achieved. Cole would get a Bronze Star for valor. Martinez would get a medical discharge and a Purple Heart. But 18 years later, Cole Bennett still tasted that dust, still heard Martinez crying for his mother, still saw the fireball that took Johnson and Williams before they could even scream. Some promises you kept. Some promises kept you. The October wind came down from the mountains like a living thing. Cole felt it push against him as the Harley ate up the empty miles of 2-lane blacktop. The engine's thunder was the only sound in a landscape so big it made a man feel small. Mountains rose on both sides like ancient sentinels. Their peaks already wore caps of early snow. Cole Bennett was 43 years old. He looked older. 3 tours in Afghanistan did that to a man. So did 4 months of living on a motorcycle with nowhere to go and no reason to get there. The fuel gauge kissed empty. Cole's wallet held $23. His duffel bag contained everything he owned. 2 changes of clothes, a shaving kit, tools wrapped in oilcloth, the M1911 pistol his grandfather had carried in Vietnam, legally registered and carefully maintained, and a photograph of his 82nd Airborne Unit, taken in Helmand Province in 2005. 37 faces smiled at the camera. 12 of them were dead now. The sign said Pinewood, Montana. Population 1,847. Cole almost rode past. Small towns were all the same. Weathered storefronts that had seen better decades. Old men sitting on benches watching strangers pass. Churches with steeples that pointed at God like accusations. He'd ridden through 100 towns just like this one in the past 4 months, given them all the same thing: dust and distance. But the fuel light had been on for 10 miles. Math didn't lie. He'd run out of gas before the next town. So Cole downshifted and took the exit ramp into Pinewood. Main Street looked like a postcard from 1975. Harrison's General Store. Betty's Diner with its flickering neon sign. The Pinewood Sheriff's Office with one patrol car parked out front. A hardware store. A church. The bones of small-town America laid bare under the October sun. Cole pulled into the gas station. An old man in coveralls watched him from the service bay. The kind of look that said stranger. The kind that measured and judged and found wanting before you even opened your mouth. Cole ignored it. He'd been getting that look for 4 months. Ever since the diesel plant in Spokane shut its doors and put 37 men out of work. Ever since he'd loaded his life onto the Harley and pointed it east toward nothing in particular. The gas pump was ancient, the kind where you actually had to wait for the mechanical numbers to roll over. Cole filled his tank and counted out exact change at the register. The woman behind the counter had kind eyes and hair gone silver white. "Passing through?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "Well, you picked a pretty time of year for it. Leaves are turning up in the high country." Cole nodded. He'd learned that small talk was the price of gas in places like this. People needed to make human connection, even with strangers, especially with strangers. It reminded them they were alive. He was walking back to the bike when he saw her. An old woman stood at the top of a wooden ladder. The ladder leaned against a 2-story Victorian house that looked like it had weathered too many Montana winters. The woman couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds. White hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, flannel shirt and faded jeans that had seen better days. She struggled with a bundle of roofing shingles that probably weighed more than she did. Cole stopped. His engineering eye automatically assessed the situation. The ladder was old. The wood had gone gray with age. The third rung showed a dark crack that spoke of rot. The wind gusted at 15 to 20 miles per hour. The woman's grip on the shingles was weakening. He could see how it would happen. The wind would gust. She'd shift her weight to compensate. The rotten rung would give way. She'd fall 20 feet to the hard ground below. At her age, that fall would kill her. Broken hip, internal bleeding, dead before the ambulance arrived. Cole's grandmother would have been about the same age. Would have been. She'd died 3 years ago while Cole was deployed. He'd missed the funeral. His hand was on the kickstand before he realized he'd made a decision. The woman didn't look down as Cole approached. She had the focused concentration of someone who knew they were doing something dangerous and refused to acknowledge it. "Ma'am," Cole called up, "that ladder's compromised. Third rung's rotted through." Now she looked down, sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. A face lined with 7 decades of living, but still beautiful in the way old trees are beautiful. She studied Cole with the kind of directness that made most people uncomfortable. "Been up here before," she said. Her voice carried the slight twang of someone who'd lived in Montana their whole life. "I'll manage." "Yes, ma'am, but physics doesn't care about experience. Weight distribution on that rung is compromised. Wood's deteriorated, next strong wind gust, and you're coming down hard." She considered this. Cole saw the moment she recognized military bearing in his posture. The way he stood with unconscious discipline. The assessment in his eyes that came from years of evaluating threats. "You know ladders, mister?" "Bennett. James Bennett. Most folks call me Cole." He kept his hands visible, non-threatening. "And yes, ma'am, spent time building FOBs in Afghanistan. No structural integrity when I see it." "FOBs, forward operating bases." She climbed down carefully, each rung deliberate and controlled. On the ground, she was smaller than she'd appeared on the ladder, but her bearing suggested someone accustomed to handling her own problems. "You're a veteran." "Yes, ma'am, 82nd Airborne. Margaret Sullivan." She extended her hand. Her grip was firm, dry, the handshake of someone who didn't suffer fools. "Most folks call me Maggie, and before you ask, yes, I know it's dangerous. Yes, I'm probably too old for this. And no, I don't have anyone else to help." Cole looked up at the roof. The damage was worse than it appeared from the road. Several shingles hung loose like broken teeth. A blue tarp stretched across one section, already pulling free in the wind. Water stains on the fascia boards suggested the leak had been ongoing for some time. How long's it been like this? Storm last week opened her up. Had 3 contractors out. First one quoted $12,000. Second never showed for the appointment. Third gave me a fair estimate but can't start work for 6 weeks. 6 weeks is too long. Winter's coming. You get heavy snow and that leak turns into structural damage. Maggie smiled. It was a small, sad smile. Tell me something I don't know. Cole did the math without thinking. Materials would run $1,800 minimum. Full structural repair of the damaged section, ice and water shield. New decking where the water had penetrated. Labor on top of that would put it north of $3,000. He should get on his bike right away. This wasn't his problem. He'd spent 4 months running from other people's problems. From his own problems. From the ghosts that rode behind him on the highway. But Martinez's voice echoed in his head. Promise me, Sarge. And Cole Bennett kept his promises. I can fix it, he heard himself say, in exchange for meals and a place to sleep. Won't charge for labor, just materials. Maggie's eyes narrowed. She was nobody's fool. Why would you do that? Cole looked past her at the house, at the worn but well-maintained yard, at the American flag hanging from the porch, at the shadow box in the front window that held military medals. Because 18 years ago I made a promise to always protect people who need it, he said. And you need it, ma'am. The wind gusted. The blue tarp snapped like a flag. Somewhere a shutter banged against the house with a sound like a gunshot. Cole didn't flinch. Maggie noticed. Breakfast first, she said finally. Can't have you falling off my roof because your blood sugar dropped. Then we'll talk terms. The kitchen smelled like home. Cole hadn't realized how much he'd missed that smell until he walked through Maggie Sullivan's door. Bacon sizzling in a cast iron skillet. Fresh coffee percolating on an old stove. Bread warm from the oven. The scent triggered memories he'd buried. His mother's kitchen before the cancer took her. Sunday mornings before the world got complicated. Sit, Maggie commanded. She moved around the kitchen with the efficiency of someone who'd cooked in the same space for decades. Coffee's on the counter, sugar's in the bowl, cream's in the icebox if you need it. Cole sat. The wooden chair was old but solid, comfortable in the way things get when they've been used with care for years. He poured coffee into a mug that had "World's Best Dad" printed on the side in faded letters. The kitchen told stories if you knew how to read them. Pencil marks on the doorframe tracked children's heights through the years. The refrigerator wore a collage of grandchildren's artwork held by magnets shaped like states. A ceramic cookie jar shaped like a rooster presided over the counter. And there on the hook by the window hung a coffee mug that clearly belonged to someone who no longer used it. Cole had seen enough military widows to recognize the signs. Your husband served? He gestured toward the shadow box in the living room. Visible through the doorway, Korean war medals mounted on blue velvet. Korea. Maggie set a plate before him, bacon thick cut and perfectly crispy, eggs over easy the way the yolk stayed soft, toast from the bread she'd baked herself. 1st Marine Division, 2 tours, came home in 53 different than he left. They all do. You too? Afghanistan, 2 deployments, 2003 and 2005. Maggie poured her own coffee and sat across from him. The nightmares? Most nights. She nodded. No judgment, no pity, just understanding. Thomas had them for 15 years. Used to wake up screaming. Thought he was back at Chosin Reservoir. I'd hold him and tell him he was home. That he was safe. Some nights he believed me. Cole ate. Real food prepared with care tasted different from gas station hot dogs and diner specials. He hadn't realized how hungry he was. Hadn't let himself think about it. Hunger was just another discomfort to push through. Another mile to ride. How did he cope? The question surprised Cole. He hadn't meant to ask. Hadn't meant to care. Work. Maggie gestured toward the window. Through it, Cole could see a detached garage. Kept his hands busy. Built things. Fixed things. Said it quieted the mind. Did it work? Eventually, took 15 years, but he found peace, not by running from memories, by building new ones. The words hit harder than Cole expected. He focused on his coffee, on the warmth of the mug in his hands. After breakfast, Maggie showed him Thomas's workshop. The garage had been converted into a craftsman's dream. Tools hung on pegboard in precise arrangements, each implement clean and maintained. A workbench ran the length of one wall. The concrete floor still carried faint oil stains from decades of projects. Cole ran his fingers along the edge of a handplane. The blade had been sharpened recently. You keep the tools maintained. Seemed wrong to let them rust. Thomas loved these tools, said they were extensions of his hands. That's when Cole saw the motorcycle manuals. They sat on a shelf above the workbench. Harley Davidson's service guides from the 1980s and 90s, repair manuals for a Sportster, maintenance logs and careful handwriting. He rode? Maggie smiled, a real smile this time, one that reached her eyes. Started when he turned 50, said he needed something that was just his, something that reminded him he was still alive and capable of adventure. She pulled a journal from the shelf, leather-bound, the pages worn soft from handling. He kept a diary of the rides, every trip, every road, every sunrise he chased. Cole opened it carefully. Thomas Sullivan's handwriting was precise, almost architectural, each entry dated and detailed. July 12, 1987. Rode to Glacier National Park. Camped at Lake McDonald. Maggie learned to lean into the curves today. She's fearless. We watched the sunrise paint the mountains gold. These are the moments that matter. You rode too? 6 years. Thomas taught me. Said motorcycles were therapy for people who couldn't afford psychiatrists. Maggie's voice went soft. We covered every back road in 3 states. Then his arthritis got bad. Couldn't grip the handlebars anymore. We sold the bikes. Cole closed the journal, handed it back with reverence. He found what worked for him. He found purpose after the war. Something bigger than himself. Maybe you will too. I'm just passing through, ma'am. That's what Thomas said when he first came to Pinewood. Stayed 49 years. Cole didn't know what to say to that. Didn't want to think about staying anywhere. Staying meant attachment. Attachment meant loss. He'd lost enough. I should look at that roof. The damage was worse up close. Cole climbed the ladder properly this time, with safety protocols his combat engineering instructor would have approved. From the roof, he could see the full extent of the problem. Water had penetrated the decking in 3 distinct sections. The felt underlayment had deteriorated along the entire affected area. 2 of the rafters showed signs of moisture damage. The ice dam that formed last winter had done more harm than Maggie realized. This wasn't a patch job. This was full structural repair. Cole climbed down and found Maggie waiting in the yard. She'd brought lemonade. The glass was cold with condensation. Mrs. Sullivan, this is serious structural work. Materials alone will run $1,800 minimum. Labor on top of that. Her face fell, just for a moment. Then she collected herself with visible effort. I have 800 saved. I can do a temporary patch for that, but it won't survive winter. Then we do temporary. It's all I have. Cole looked at the house, at the American flag, at the garden where tomatoes still grew heavy on the vine despite the October chill, at this woman who'd raised a family and taught students and buried a husband and refused to surrender to age or circumstance. Or, he said slowly, I could do it right, in exchange for meals and a place to sleep. We discussed this. Why would you do that? Because I made a promise 18 years ago. Cole met her eyes, held her gaze. To always protect people who can't protect themselves. And right now, you need protection from winter and a failing roof. Maggie studied him. Cole had the sense of being evaluated the way she'd probably evaluated thousands of students over the years, looking past the surface, searching for character. You'll work professionally? No cutting corners? Marine Corps engineering standards, ma'am. And you'll leave when the job's done? Cole hesitated. He'd been so certain of that answer 4 months ago. Now, standing in Maggie Sullivan's yard with Thomas's tools waiting in the garage and the smell of home-cooked breakfast still in his memory, the answer felt less clear. Yes, ma'am, when the roof's done. Then I accept, on one condition. What's that? You eat breakfast with me every morning. Real food, not whatever you've been surviving on. Cole felt something tighten in his chest, something that might have been gratitude or might have been the beginning of attachment. Deal. They shook on it. Maggie's hand disappeared in his, but her grip was firm. We start after you've had a proper meal, she said. Can't have you falling off my roof on an empty stomach. The work felt good, better than good, essential. Cole organized the job site with military precision, tools arranged by function, materials staged for efficient workflow, safety protocols established and followed. He worked methodically, so removing damaged shingles one section at a time, checking each board for rot, assessing the structural integrity of every rafter. The October sun warmed his back. The wind carried the scent of pine from the mountains. His hands remembered the rhythm of construction. Measure twice. Cut once. Check for square. The physical demand satisfied something deep, something that had been hollow for months. Around 10, Maggie appeared with lemonade. She'd been watching from the garden. "You work like Thomas did," she said. "Everything precise, everything checked. Military habits, hard to break. Don't break them. They're good habits." She settled into a lawn chair she'd positioned for optimal storytelling angle. Cole discovered she had a gift for narrative. She pointed to houses along the street and brought their histories to life. The blue house across the way. The Anderson family, 6 children, all successful. 2 doctors, 1 lawyer, a teacher, an engineer, a nurse, all because their parents worked 3 jobs to pay for college. The yellow cottage on the corner. Dr. Morrison had practiced there for 40 years, delivered half the babies in Pinewood, made house calls until he was 80, died in his sleep at 92 with his medical bag packed beside the bed. The Victorian on Elm Street. The Patterson house. Old Mrs. Patterson had been the town librarian for 30 years, knew every book in that building, could recommend exactly what you needed to read whether you knew it or not. Cole found himself looking forward to these breaks, to the stories, to Maggie's voice painting pictures of a community bound by shared history. "You taught at the high school?" he asked during one of the pauses. 40 years, English and American literature, started in 1962, fresh out of college and full of ideas about changing the world one student at a time. "Did you change the world?" Maggie considered this seriously. "Changed some small corners of it, I suppose. Had a student named Daniel Foster. Family fell on hard times during the farm crisis. Barely spoke in class when he started my sophomore year. Now he's a federal judge in California." She stood and brushed imaginary dust from her jeans. "Speaking of which, I should start thinking about dinner. You like pot roast?" "Ma'am, I'd eat cardboard if it came from your kitchen." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Then pot roast it is." That evening the phone rang while Cole was securing the last tarp before sunset. He heard Maggie's voice through the open window, warm at first, then increasingly tense. "Bradley, I've told you before. I'm managing just fine." A pause. "No, I don't need someone coming to assess my situation." Another pause. Longer this time. "What do you mean you've been talking to neighbors?" Cole tried not to listen. Failed. The conversation continued for several more minutes. Maggie's responses became increasingly clipped. When she finally hung up, Cole could see the exhaustion in her posture through the kitchen window. He climbed down and knocked softly before entering. Maggie sat at the table. The pot roast simmered on the stove, forgotten. "Trouble with Bo?" he asked gently. "My son David, he's a lawyer in Denver, thinks that gives him the right to manage everyone's life." She looked up at Cole. The sharpness had returned to her eyes. "Someone told him about you. Apparently having a motorcycle rider fix my roof means I'm no longer competent to live independently." Cole felt the familiar weight of being judged by appearance. "I'm sorry, I never meant to cause problems with your family." "You didn't cause anything. David's been looking for an excuse to move me into assisted living ever since his father died. Says it's for my own good. I suspect it has more to do with convenience than concern." She stood and walked to the window, looked out at the garden Thomas had planted and she'd maintained for 49 years. "He's coming up from Denver this weekend. Says he wants to evaluate the situation and meet this contractor I've hired." Cole processed this information carefully. "Would it be better if I wasn't here when he arrives?" "Absolutely not." Maggie's voice carried a steel edge. "You've done beautiful work and you have nothing to be ashamed of. If David has a problem with my choices, he can discuss it with me directly." She turned to face Cole. "I've been making my own decisions for 78 years, Mr. Bennett. I raised 2 children, taught 3 generations of students, nursed my husband through his final illness, kept this house standing through every storm Montana could throw at it. I will not be treated like a child by my own son." "What do you want to do?" "I want to fight." The resolve in her voice matched the set of her shoulders. "This house, this life, it's all I have left of Thomas, of the family we built together. I won't let David steamroll me just because he thinks he knows what's best." Cole nodded slowly. "Then we fight. I've got some experience dealing with people who think they know what's best for everyone else." Maggie reached over and squeezed his hand. "Thomas would have liked you very much, Cole Bennett." That night, Cole couldn't sleep. The nightmares came like they always did. Martinez bleeding out, Johnson and Williams burning, the promise he'd kept and the 2 he'd broken. The fireworks started at 2 in the morning. Some neighbors' kids setting off early Halloween rockets. The first explosion brought Cole out of bed and onto the floor before he was fully awake. Hard hammering, hands reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. His breath came in short gasps that wouldn't slow down. Afghanistan. He was in Afghanistan. The convoy, the IED, get to Martinez, cover the medevac, return fire. Except he wasn't. He was in a cheap motel room in Pinewood, Montana. The year was 2023. The war had been over for years. He was safe. His hands shook. His body didn't believe what his mind knew. It took 5 minutes for his heart rate to return to normal. 10 before the shaking stopped. By then he was sitting on the floor with his back against the bed, staring at nothing. This was why he didn't stay anywhere, why he kept moving. The nightmares followed him, but at least on the road he could outrun the shame of them, could pack up and leave before anyone saw him broken. But something was different this time. For the first time in months, he had a reason to push through. Maggie's roof, the promise he'd made, work that mattered. Cole pulled his phone from the nightstand, scrolled to a name he hadn't called in years. Martinez, Juan. The call went straight to voicemail. It always did. Cole had never left a message. Didn't know what to say. Sorry I saved you when I couldn't save the others. Glad you survived, but wish they had too. Instead, he typed a text, the first one in 18 years. It's Cole Bennett. I'm doing okay. Hope you are too. He stared at it for a long moment, deleted it without sending. Some conversations weren't ready to happen yet. Morning came too early, but Cole was at Maggie's door by 7. She had coffee ready, and the smell of bacon filled the kitchen. Sleep well? She asked. Well enough. She gave him a look that said she didn't believe him, but wouldn't push. Eat. Long day ahead. While Cole ate, she packed a thermos with coffee and wrapped sandwiches in wax paper. Gets hot up on that roof, she explained. You'll need to stay hydrated. After breakfast, they walked to Harrison's general store, a narrow building squeezed between the post office and a shop that sold quilts. The proprietor, Bill Harrison, looked Cole up and down with careful neutrality. Morning, Maggie? Harrison's voice was warm. What brings you in so early? Need roofing supplies, Bill. This is Cole Bennett. He's helping me with the repairs. Harrison's handshake was firm but cautious. Roofing work. That's skilled labor. I've done my share, Cole replied evenly. They selected materials methodically. Rolls of felt underlayment, bundles of architectural shingles to match the existing roof, roofing nails and flashing for the problem areas. Cole ran quick calculations in his head, estimating coverage and waste factors with precision. You'll want some ice and water shield for those valleys, Cole suggested, pointing to the specialized membrane. Costs more up front, but saves trouble down the road. Harrison's attitude shifted slightly. Not many folks know about ice and water shield. Not many folks have spent winters in Montana or built structures that had to survive rocket attacks. The total came to $1,647. Cole pulled out $847 in cash, everything he had left. Maggie covered the remaining $800. Harrison watched the transaction with new interest. You planning to stick around Pinewood? Just fixing a roof. That's what they all say, Harrison grinned. My wife said the same thing 40 years ago. Still here. Back at the house, Cole set up his workspace with the same precision he'd used for everything since basic training. Tools organized, materials staged, safety protocols established. The latter went against the most stable part of the structure. He insisted Maggie stay on the ground. The work progressed steadily. The physical demands felt good after months of highway monotony. His hands remembered the rhythm. His muscles appreciated the use. And every nail driven felt like a small promise kept. Around noon, Sheriff Tom Grady's patrol car pulled up to the curb. Cole climbed down, wiping sweat from his forehead. Afternoon. Grady approached with the measured pace of someone who'd learned not to rush to judgment. How's the work coming? Making progress. Should have her weather-tight by week's end. Grady studied the roof, noted the neat stacks of materials, the methodical approach to repairs. You do this kind of work often? When I need to. Tom Murphy says you're a veteran. 82nd Airborne, Afghanistan. Army Rangers, Iraq and Afghanistan, 3 deployments. Grady's eyes held understanding. I know the look. What look is that, Sheriff? Man who's seen too much and doesn't know where to put it down. Also the look of someone who still gives a damn. That's why you're here, isn't it? I'm here because Mrs. Sullivan needed help. And you stopped when you could have kept writing. That says something. Grady pulled out a business card, handed it to Cole. If you decide to stay, give me a call. Volunteer fire department needs people with your training. I'm not staying. Just fixing a roof, Grady smiled. The same knowing smile Harrison had worn. Sure, that's what I said 20 years ago. Welcome to Pinewood, Cole. That evening, after Cole had left for the motel, Maggie sat alone in her kitchen. Thomas's mug hung on its hook. The cookie jar sat empty. The house felt too large for one person. She walked to the study and opened the cedar chest beneath the window. Inside, organized by decade, were 418 letters, each one tied with ribbon. Each one a testament to 40 years of teaching. Maggie pulled out the bundle from the 1970s, found the letter she was looking for. Daniel Foster's careful handwriting on formal federal court letterhead. Dear Mrs. Sullivan, I'm writing to let you know I've just been appointed to the federal bench in California. I doubt you remember me, but I was Daniel Foster in your 1978 junior English class. You were the first teacher who made me believe I could be anything I wanted to be. She'd received this letter 5 years ago, had cried when she read it, still cried every time. 418 letters. 418 reasons why she couldn't let David put her in assisted living, why she couldn't sell this house. This wasn't just where she lived. This was the repository of her life's work. The phone rang, David again. Maggie let it go to voicemail. Mom, it's me. I'm driving up Friday. We really need to talk about your situation, about the house, about this contractor Pete told me about. I know you think you're managing, but we both know you need help, real help, not from some stranger on a motorcycle. I've been looking into Meadowbrook Assisted Living. It's beautiful, Mom. You'd love it. Just think about it. Please, I'll see you Friday. Maggie deleted the message, returned to the cedar chest. Tomorrow she would show Cole the letters. Tomorrow she would make her case. Tonight she would remember Thomas, would read his motorcycle journal, would remind herself that some things were worth fighting for. She opened the journal to a random page. Thomas's handwriting greeted her like an old friend. October 15th, 1989. Rode up to Glacier today. Just me and Maggie and the open road. She's fearless on the bike now, leans into the curves like she was born to it. We watch the sunrise paint the mountains gold. These moments, these perfect moments, this is what I survived Korea for. This is what matters. Maggie closed the journal carefully, held it against her chest. I'm not going anywhere, Thomas, she whispered to the empty kitchen. Not without a fight. Friday arrived too quickly. Cole had the southwest corner of the roof 70% secured when David Sullivan's silver BMW pulled into the driveway at precisely 10 in the morning. David emerged looking every inch the successful Denver lawyer. Expensive suit, polished shoes, leather briefcase that probably cost more than Cole's motorcycle. He was 52 but looked younger. The kind of man who jogged every morning and counted calories. His eyes found Cole on the roof, narrowed with instant judgment. Cole had seen that look before. The assessment that starts with motorcycle and leather jacket and ends with conclusions about character. He'd learned to ignore it, mostly. Mr. Sullivan, Cole climbed down, extended his hand. James Bennett. David's handshake was brief, professional, cold. My mother hired you without background check, references, or license verification. Your mother needed help. I had the skills. We worked out an arrangement. An arrangement? David's tone made it sound dirty. That's what concerns me. Before Cole could respond, Maggie appeared on the porch. David William Sullivan, enough. Cole has been nothing but professional and helpful. Unlike the 3 contractors who either overcharged, no-showed, or couldn't work for 6 weeks. Mom, can we please talk inside? Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Cole. He's earned my trust. Father and son faced each other. Cole recognized the dynamic immediately. Worried child trying to protect aging parent. Parent fighting for independence and dignity. He'd seen it play out in hospital rooms and funeral homes. Usually it ended badly for everyone. I'll give you privacy, Cole said. Work to do anyway. He climbed back up to the roof, gave them space. But voices carried through the October air. Mom, we need to talk about your situation. My situation is fine. It's not fine. The house is falling apart. You're 78, living alone, trusting strangers. Cole is not a stranger. You've known him 4 days. The argument continued. Cole tried not to listen. Failed. He'd heard the same conversation in his own family. Before his mother died, before his sister stopped speaking to him, before he'd loaded everything onto the Harley and disappeared. Family was complicated. Love looked like control. Worry manifested as pressure. And nobody won these fights. They just wounded each other and called it caring. Cole focused on his work, on driving nails true, on making sure every shingle overlapped correctly, on keeping the promise he'd made to Maggie Sullivan, because some promises you could keep. Even when you couldn't keep them all, the storm was coming. Weather reports said 3 days, but Cole could smell it in the air, could see it in the clouds building over the mountains. Winter arrived early in Montana, and Maggie Sullivan's house wasn't ready yet. Neither was Cole, but ready or not, Friday had arrived. David Sullivan had arrived, and the fight for Margaret Sullivan's independence was about to begin. Some battles you saw coming. Others found you when you stopped running long enough to care. Cole Bennett had stopped running. Now he would see what that cost. The kitchen felt smaller with David Sullivan in it. He sat at the table where Cole had eaten breakfast for the past 4 mornings. His expensive suit looked out of place against the worn wood and faded curtains. The briefcase sat between them like a weapon waiting to be drawn. Maggie poured coffee. Her hands were steady, but Cole, watching through the window as he organized tools, could see the tension in her shoulders. "Mom, I love you. You know that, right?" "I know you worry. That's different." David opened the briefcase. Cole saw papers, official-looking documents with legal letterhead, the kind that changed lives whether you wanted them to or not. "Dad's been gone 3 years. I've watched you struggle. The house needs tens of thousands in repairs. Your pension barely covers property taxes. You're 78, living alone, and now you're trusting complete strangers with major construction work." "Cole is not a stranger. You've known him 4 days. David's voice rose, not quite shouting but heading that direction. 4 days, Mom, and you've let him into your home, given him access to everything you own. How do you know he's not casing the place, planning to rob you the moment the work is done?" Cole stopped pretending not to listen. He set down his hammer and started to climb down, to leave, to give them real privacy. But Maggie's voice stopped him. "Because I've spent 40 years reading people, David. I know a good man when I see one. I know the difference between someone who means harm and someone who's just lost his way." Papers rustled. David's voice went quiet, dangerous quiet. "Then explain these." Cole couldn't see what David had pulled from the briefcase, but he heard Maggie's sharp intake of breath. "You filed for conservatorship without asking me. It's for your own good." "For my own good." Maggie's voice went flat, cold. "You want to take away my autonomy, make me a legal ward, control my finances, my decisions, my life. I want to keep you safe. By imprisoning me?" The words hung in the October air. Cole gripped the ladder. Every instinct screamed at him to intervene, to protect. But this wasn't his fight, wasn't his family. He was just the guy fixing the roof. Except it didn't feel that way anymore. "Mom, please, look at this rationally." David's voice carried desperation now. "The house needs $50,000 in repairs minimum. Roof, electrical, plumbing, foundation. On your pension, you can't afford it. What happens when something else breaks? When winter comes and the furnace dies? When you fall and there's no one here to help? So your solution is to take away my choices? My solution is to give you better options." More papers. Cole heard them slide across the table. Glossy paper. Probably brochures. "Meadowbrook Assisted Living. It's beautiful, Mom. 24-hour care. Activities. People your own age. No more worrying about leaks or taxes or maintenance. You could actually enjoy your remaining years instead of fighting to maintain a house that's falling down around you." The silence that followed felt like a held breath. Cole found himself waiting, hoping that Maggie would fight back, would refuse, would remember why she'd hired a stranger to fix her roof in the first place. "Come here." Maggie's voice, quiet but firm. "I want to show you something." Footsteps, moving from kitchen to what Cole assumed was a study or living room. He should climb back up, should focus on work, should stop eavesdropping on a private family crisis. Instead, he found himself moving closer to the open window, close enough to hear clearly. 418 letters. Maggie's voice carried reverence. "From students I taught over 40 years. You want to know why I won't sell this house? Why I won't go to Meadowbrook? This is why." Paper rustling, letters being pulled from bundles, ribbons sliding free. "Daniel Foster. You remember him? Pete Holloway's grandson. I taught him in 1978. He struggled with Hamlet, couldn't understand why a prince would hesitate to avenge his father, so I stayed after school. 2 weeks. Every day. Until he understood not just the words, but the heart of the story. That honor and duty and justice are complicated. That doing the right thing isn't always clear." She was reading now. Cole could hear it in the rhythm of her voice. "Dear Mrs. Sullivan, I'm writing to let you know I've just been appointed to the federal bench in California. I doubt you remember me, but I was Daniel Foster in your 1978 junior English class. You were the first teacher who made me believe I could be anything I wanted to be. When I struggled with Hamlet, you stayed after school for 2 weeks until I understood not just the words but the heart of the story. That patience and faith changed my life. David's voice, softer now. Daniel Foster, Pete's grandson, is a federal judge, one of 418. More letters, more stories. Patricia Holloway, chief of pediatrics at Denver Children's Hospital. Convinced at 15 she'd never amount to anything. Maggie had seen potential her own family missed. Danny Henderson, state trooper. Ethics discussions about To Kill a Mockingbird had taught him what justice really meant. Rebecca Crawford, family lost their farm in the 90s. Came to Maggie's class speaking broken English, convinced she was worthless. Maggie spent her own money buying books, stayed after school for 2 years. Where is she now? David asked. Federal translator, Army intelligence, captain. Served 6 tours in Afghanistan, speaks 7 languages. She carries the copy of To Kill a Mockingbird I gave her in 1996, has read it 47 times. Says it reminds her that standing up for what's right always matters. The silence stretched. Cole found himself holding his breath, waiting for David's response. When it came, David's voice was thick. Mom, I had no idea. Because you didn't ask. You saw an elderly woman in a deteriorating house. You didn't see 418 lives I touched. The generations of children I taught. The community I helped build. I was trying to protect you. From what? From mattering? From having purpose? Maggie's voice rose. Not angry, passionate. David, this house isn't just walls and a roof. It's 40 years of service, of making a difference, of showing young people that someone believes in them. A pause, then quieter. You want to put me in Meadowbrook, where I don't know anyone and no one knows me? Where I'll spend my remaining years playing bingo and waiting to die? That's not protection, David, that's surrender. And I didn't raise you to surrender. Cole heard something break in David's voice. I don't want to lose you like I lost Dad. You won't lose me by letting me live, but you will lose me if you take away everything that makes my life worth living. The afternoon sun hung lower in the sky when David finally emerged from the house. His eyes were red. The expensive suit looked rumpled. He found Cole on the roof and stood at the base of the ladder. Mr. Bennett, can we start over? Cole climbed down, wiped sawdust from his hands. Yes, sir. I owe you an apology. I made assumptions based on appearance and gossip. That was wrong. You were protecting your mother. That's your job. Still, I was an ass about it. David managed a weak smile. Tom Murphy tells me you're a veteran. 82nd Airborne? Yes, sir. Afghanistan, 2003 and 2005. Thank you for your service. David extended his hand properly this time. The handshake was warm, genuine. And for helping my mother. I was so focused on what she couldn't do that I forgot to see what she was fighting for. Cole nodded, didn't trust himself to speak. The raw emotion in David's voice hit too close to his own buried feelings. What else does the house need? David asked. Besides the roof. Electrical's original 1970s, should be updated. Plumbing's copper, aging but functional for now. Foundation's solid but could use waterproofing. Windows are single pane, inefficient for Montana winters. Cost estimate? Done right? 40 to 50,000 over the next 2 years. David pulled out his phone, started making notes. I'll cover it, on one condition. You're the contractor. Sir, I'm not licensed in Montana. So get licensed. Tom Murphy can supervise until you do. Mom trusts you. After seeing your work, I trust you. That's good enough for me. Cole looked past David at the house, at Maggie visible through the kitchen window, at the life she'd built and refused to abandon. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Sullivan, but I'm not sure I'm staying. Then let me make it worth your while to stay. This town needs people like you. My mother needs people like you. David's voice went quiet. And from what I've seen, you need this place too. The weather forecast changed at 5 p.m. The winter storm that had been predicted for Sunday was now expected Saturday afternoon. Maybe Saturday morning. The meteorologist's uncertainty didn't matter. What mattered was the timeline had just collapsed. Cole had 4 days of work left. Now he had less than 24 hours. Maggie brought the news along with coffee and sandwiches. How bad? Southwest corner needs another full day. I can get the critical sections weatherproof by tomorrow morning if I work through the night. Full completion will have to wait until after the storm passes. Will the house survive? Cole looked at the work he'd done, at the sections still vulnerable. The parts I've repaired will hold, but that southwest corner, if the storm hits as hard as they're predicting. He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. They both understood. Then we work tonight, Maggie said. I'll make coffee, food, whatever you need. Mrs. Sullivan, I can't ask you to stay up all night because of a roof. You're not asking. I'm telling. This is my house. I'm helping. An hour later, Tom Murphy's truck pulled up. The Vietnam veteran climbed out carrying a tool belt and wearing a grin. Heard you were working late. Figured you could use an extra pair of hands. Tom, you don't have to do this. Marines help Marines, even if you're Army. Tom clapped Cole on the shoulder. Besides, my wife's sister is visiting. Thought I'd find a good excuse to leave them alone with their gossip. They worked as the sun set and the temperature dropped. Maggie brought floodlights from Thomas's garage, set them up to illuminate the work area. The generator hummed like a mechanical heartbeat in the darkness. Tom worked with the efficiency of someone who'd built things all his life. They fell into an easy rhythm. Cole on the high sections, Tom handling materials and working the lower areas. Conversation came in fits and starts between the sounds of hammers and saws. I know why you're running, Tom said during one of the breaks. They sat on the edge of the roof, drinking coffee Maggie had brought up in a thermos. Been there, done that, wore out 3 motorcycles in 4 states before I landed here. What made you stop? Realized I wasn't running from the war. I was running from the guilt of surviving it. Cole set down his coffee cup. The admission hit harder than he expected. I was at Khe Sanh, Tom continued. 1968, siege lasted 77 days, lost half my platoon, came home and couldn't settle, couldn't sleep, couldn't look my own mother in the eye because I'd lived and better men had died. So you just stopped running? No, I found something bigger than guilt. Community. Purpose. Reason to get up that wasn't just avoiding nightmares. Tom pointed toward the town below. These people needed things built. I knew how to build. Simple as that. Cole thought about Martinez, about the phone call he'd never answered. I saved 1 man, lost 2 others. What do I say to the one I saved when I couldn't save them all? You say I'm glad you're alive. You say your life matters. You say what you need someone to say to you. I don't know if I can. Not yet, but you will. Tom stood, stretched his back. This place has a way of putting broken things back together, if you let it. They worked until 2 in the morning. The southwest corner was 70% secure when exhaustion finally forced them to stop. Cole's hands ached. His back screamed, but the satisfaction ran deeper than the pain. Maggie had soup waiting in the kitchen. She'd stayed up the entire time, monitoring the weather, making food, being present. I don't know how to thank you, Cole said. The words felt inadequate. No thanks needed. This is what neighbors do. I'm not a neighbor. I'm just passing through. Maggie smiled, that knowing smile that said she saw through him. Thomas said the same thing, stayed 49 years. Saturday morning arrived with clouds the color of old bruises. The temperature had dropped 20 degrees overnight. The wind carried the smell of snow. David helped Cole load materials. The expensive suit had been replaced with jeans and a borrowed work jacket. He moved awkwardly, office hands unused to physical labor. But he didn't complain. Mom showed me the letters last night, David said during one of the water breaks. All 418. We stayed up until 3 reading them. Cole measured a board, marked it for cutting. She's proud of that work. She should be. I spent my whole life knowing she was a teacher. I never understood what that meant, what she gave those kids, what they gave back to her. The saw screamed through wood. Cole waited until the cut was complete before responding. She sees people, not problems. Rare quality. She saw you. Cole looked up from the board. David met his eyes. I was wrong about you, Cole. Wrong about the situation. Wrong about what Mom needed. David's voice went rough. I almost made the worst mistake of my life. Almost took away the only thing that gives her purpose. Because I was scared and couldn't see past my own fear. You love your mother. Sometimes love looks like control. Is that what happened to you? Someone loved you too much and you ran? The question landed like a punch. Cole set down the saw. Something like that. David didn't push, just nodded, picked up another board. They worked in silence for a while, the kind of comfortable quiet that comes when men understand each other without needing words. At noon, the first snow flurries started, light at first, then heavier. The storm was coming faster than predicted. Cole made the call. We're out of time. I can get a tarp over the vulnerable section. That'll have to hold until the storm passes. They worked frantically. Cole and David and Tom Murphy, who'd returned with more materials, and his wife Helen, who brought food and moral support. The wind picked up, the temperature dropped. Snow began to accumulate on the roof, making footing treacherous. By 3 p.m., they'd done everything possible. The critical sections were weatherproof. The southwest corner had a heavy-duty tarp secured with enough fasteners to survive a hurricane. It wasn't perfect, but it would have to be enough. The storm hit in full force at 7 p.m. Wind howled around the house like a living thing. Snow fell so thick it turned the world white. Inside, Maggie's kitchen had become a refuge. Cole sat at the table with David and Tom and Helen. Sheriff Grady had stopped by earlier, checking on residents. Bill Harrison from the hardware store had called to make sure they had everything they needed. The town was circling its wagons, taking care of its own. "You're staying tonight," Maggie announced. Not a question, a statement. "Roads are already dangerous. Motel's probably full of stranded travelers anyway. Guest rooms made up." Cole started to protest, stopped. The exhaustion had caught up with him, and the thought of the motel room, with its thin walls and nightmares waiting, held no appeal. "Thank you, ma'am." That night, for the first time in 4 months, Cole slept through until morning. No nightmares, no fireworks jolting him awake. Just the sound of wind and snow, and the solid presence of a house that held. Sunday dawned clear and brutally cold. 2 feet of snow covered Pinewood. The mountains wore fresh white like royal robes, and Maggie Sullivan's roof, battered by wind and weighted with snow, held firm. Cole stood in the yard, coffee steaming in his hands, and studied his work. Every section he'd repaired showed no signs of stress. Even the tarped corner had survived. The house stood strong. Good work. David appeared beside him, his hair stuck up in odd angles. He'd slept on Maggie's couch. "Mom's roof hasn't looked this good in years. Still needs completion work after the weather clears." But it held, that's what matters. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the mountains gold. Cole felt something shift inside him, something that had been wound tight for months beginning to loosen. His phone buzzed, a text message, from a number he recognized but hadn't heard from in 18 years. "Sarge, it's Martinez. I call every year. You never answer. But I keep trying because you saved my life and I want you to know it mattered. I'm married now, 2 kids, teaching high school history in Phoenix, living the life you gave me. Thank you doesn't cover it, but thank you. Call me sometime, please." Cole stared at the message. Read it 3 times. His hands shook. "Bad news?" David asked. "No, just someone I've been avoiding." "Important person?" "I pulled him out of an IED blast in Afghanistan. He calls every year on the anniversary. I never answer." David considered this. "Why not?" "Because 2 others died in that blast, Johnson and Williams. I saved Martinez but couldn't save them. What do I say to the one I saved when I failed the other 2? You say I'm glad you're alive." David's voice went soft. "You say I did what I could. You say I'm sorry it wasn't enough. And you let him thank you for the gift you gave him." Cole looked at the message again, at the life Martinez described. Kids, teaching, purpose, all because Cole had kept a promise 18 years ago. His thumb hovered over the call button. 18 years of guilt, 18 years of running. Maybe it was time to stop. He pressed call. Martinez answered on the second ring. "Sarge?" "Yeah, Martinez, it's me." The sound that came through the phone might have been a laugh, or might have been a sob. "You answered, after 18 years. You actually answered." "I did. Are you okay?" "Where are you?" "Montana, small town called Pinewood, fixing someone's roof." "You stopped running?" Cole looked at the house, at the roof he'd repaired, at Maggie visible through the kitchen window, making breakfast, at David standing beside him like an unlikely friend, at Tom Murphy's truck pulling up with more supplies for the final work. "Yeah, Martinez, I think I stopped running." "Good. That's good, Sarge." Martinez's voice thick with emotion. "Johnson and Williams. They wouldn't want you running. They died so you could live, so I could live. Don't waste that." "I'm trying not to. Call me again, next week, next month. Just call me." "I will. I promise." "You keep your promises, Sarge. I know you do." After hanging up, Cole stood in the snow staring at his phone. David waited patiently. "Feel better?" David finally asked. "Feel like I can breathe. First time in a long time." They walked back to the house together. Maggie had breakfast ready, pancakes and bacon and coffee strong enough to wake the dead. The kitchen felt warm, felt like home. "I have a question," Maggie said as they ate, "about the garage apartment. Cole looked up from his pancakes. Ma'am? It's been empty 3 years. Thomas always meant to fix it up. Make it livable. Never got around to it. She poured more coffee with studied casualness. You could stay there, make it your base, do the repairs on this house properly, maybe take on other work in town. Mrs. Sullivan, I appreciate the offer, but I don't know if I'm ready to stop moving. I'm not asking you to stay forever. I'm asking you to stay long enough to finish what you started. The roof, the house, maybe yourself. David set down his fork. She's right, Cole. You've got skills this town needs. You've got character we need. And from what I've seen, you need this place as much as it needs you. Tom Murphy, who'd let himself in through the back door, added his voice. Pinewood Veterans Association meets Tuesday nights. We could use another member. Someone who understands. Cole looked around the table, at the faces watching him with hope and acceptance, at the offer being made. Not just a place to sleep, a place to belong. I'll think about it, he said finally. Maggie smiled. That's progress. Thomas said the same thing when he first arrived, and he thought about it for 49 years. Monday morning brought phone calls. Margaret Patterson from the town council. She'd heard about the roof, about Cole's work, about David's visit and Maggie's stand for independence. Word traveled fast in small towns. We want to do something, Margaret said. Maggie had the phone on speaker so Cole could hear while he worked. To honor you, to thank Cole, to show the community what we value. Margaret, that's not necessary. It absolutely is. Let us do this, Maggie. Monday evening, Church Fellowship Hall, the whole town. After hanging up, Maggie looked at Cole with something like apology in her eyes. I'm sorry, Margaret means well, but she doesn't know when to leave well enough alone. Cole secured another shingle. It's fine, ma'am. Small towns take care of their own. I've seen it before. You'll come, though, to the gathering? He should say no, should finish the roof and ride away before attachment became permanent, before Pinewood became home and leaving became impossible. But Martinez's words echoed in his head. They died so you could live. Don't waste that. I'll be there, Cole said, and somewhere deep in his chest, where the guilt and grief had lived for 18 years, something that felt like hope began to grow. The roof would be finished by Tuesday. The gathering was Monday night, and Cole Bennett, who'd been running for 4 months from ghosts and failures and promises broken, was about to discover that stopping could be its own kind of courage. Monday evening came too quickly. Cole stood in front of the motel bathroom mirror trying to make himself presentable. He traded the leather jacket for a clean flannel shirt, swapped the motorcycle boots for something less road-worn, combed his hair for the first time in weeks. The man staring back looked almost civilized. Almost. The scars were still there, the ones on his face from that firefight outside Kandahar, the deeper ones that didn't show. 18 years of carrying dead men on his back, 4 months of running from everything that mattered, 3 days of discovering that stopping hurt worse than moving. His phone buzzed. David Sullivan. Mom's nervous, won't admit it, but she's pacing, could use moral support before the crowd arrives. Cole pocketed the phone and headed for the door. The Harley sat in the parking lot like a patient animal, waiting, ready to run if he gave the word. But tonight the bike could wait. Tonight he'd made a promise. And Cole Bennett kept his promises. The church fellowship hall buzzed with activity when Cole arrived at 5:30. Margaret Patterson directed traffic like a field marshal. Tables appeared in neat rows. Chairs materialized from storage closets. Someone was hanging a banner that read, Community Appreciation Night, in hand-painted letters. Cole found Maggie in the kitchen. She wore a navy blue cardigan and pearl earrings. Her hair had been styled, makeup applied with a light touch. She looked elegant, nervous, beautiful in the way women who've lived full lives are beautiful. You look nice, Cole said. Maggie's hand went to her throat. I feel ridiculous. All this fuss over a roof. It's not about the roof, you know that. Then what's it about? You standing up, refusing to disappear, reminding people that age doesn't mean irrelevance. Cole leaned against the counter. You scared them, in a good way, made them remember what dignity looks like. Maggie's eyes went bright. Not quite tears, but close. Thomas would have hated this. He never liked being the center of attention. Good thing it's not about him then. It's about you, about 418 letters and 40 years of service. Let them honor that. David appeared in the doorway. His wife Jennifer stood beside him. 3 teenagers trailed behind like reluctant satellites. The grandchildren Cole had heard about but not met. Mom, David crossed the kitchen in 3 strides. Embraced Maggie like he hadn't seen her in years instead of hours. You ready for this? No, but I suppose that's never stopped me before. The doors opened at 6. People flooded in like a human tide. Former students who'd driven from Denver and Boise and Billings. Neighbors who'd lived on Maggie's street for decades. Town council members. The coffee shop crowd who'd gossiped about Cole now showed up to apologize with their presence. Cole stood near the back, watching. The room filled beyond capacity. 120 people, at least. Maybe more. All for a 78-year-old English teacher who'd refused to give up her house. Sheriff Grady appeared at Cole's elbow. Quite a turnout. Maggie's loved. That she is. Question is, you planning to stick around long enough to be part of it? Cole didn't answer. Couldn't. The question felt too big for words. Margaret Patterson took the podium at 6:30. The room quieted instantly. Respect for the speaker and the subject. Thank you all for coming, Margaret began. Her voice carried the authority of someone used to being heard, especially those who traveled far. We're here to honor two people who remind us what Pinewood is supposed to be. She told the story simply. Maggie's roof failing, Cole stopping to help, David arriving with concerns, the community rallying, the storm and the stand, and the refusal to surrender. But this isn't really about a roof, Margaret continued. It's about what happens when we forget to see each other, when we reduce people to problems instead of recognizing their worth. Maggie Sullivan taught in this town for 40 years, shaped minds and hearts of 3 generations. And we almost let her disappear into assisted living because we were too busy to notice what we were losing. The room went silent, uncomfortable. True. Cole Bennett could have kept writing. He's a stranger, a veteran passing through with no reason to stop. But he saw what we'd stopped seeing, a woman who mattered, a life worth preserving, a fight worth joining. Margaret gestured to the walls. Cole noticed for the first time the photographs covering every surface, images spanning decades. Young Maggie surrounded by students, middle-aged Maggie accepting teaching awards, recent Maggie at graduation ceremonies, a visual timeline of service and impact. 418 letters, Margaret said. That's how many former students wrote to tell Maggie she changed their lives. 418 people who became doctors and lawyers and teachers and soldiers and parents because one woman believed in them. She paused, let the numbers sink in. Tonight we honor Margaret Sullivan for reminding us that dignity isn't negotiable, that independence matters at any age. That service creates legacy. Margaret looked directly at Cole. And we welcome James Bennett to our community because Pinewood needs more people who understand that integrity isn't convenient. It's essential. The applause started slow, built to thunder, the entire room on its feet. Cole felt heat rise in his face, wanted to disappear, wanted to be anywhere but the center of attention. Maggie caught his eye across the crowd, mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Tom Murphy approached the podium carrying something wrapped in cloth. He set it on the table and pulled the covering free with a showman's flourish. The wooden sign was a work of art, hand-carved walnut with gold lettering that caught the light. The craftsmanship spoke of hours of careful labor, of love translated into wood grain and careful cuts. Margaret Sullivan Community Learning Garden. Below the main text, smaller words explained, dedicated to a teacher who planted seeds of knowledge and watched them grow into forests of wisdom. Tom cleared his throat. The empty lot behind the library. City Council voted last night to convert it to community garden and outdoor classroom space. We want you to design it, Maggie. Make it a place where learning continues beyond school walls. Maggie's hand went to her mouth. The tears came freely now. She stood and walked to the front, touched the sign with reverent fingers. I don't know what to say. Say you'll do it, Tom replied. Say you'll teach us all over again. Before Maggie could respond, Doctor. Patricia Holloway stood. Cole recognized her from the photographs. Pete Holloway's granddaughter, chief of pediatrics, one of the 418. The medical clinic is donating $15,000 for initial construction, Patricia announced. We're calling it preventive community health because education and connection are medicine too. More applause, more standing. Cole watched Maggie absorb the impact of what was happening. The community wasn't just honoring her. They were extending her legacy, making it permanent. David Sullivan approached the podium next. He pulled papers from his jacket pocket. His voice was steady, but emotion leaked through. I almost made the worst mistake of my life last week. I almost took away my mother's independence because I confused control with love, because I forgot to listen. He looked at Maggie. I'm sorry, Mom. And I'm grateful to Cole for showing me what I should have seen all along. He held up the papers. I'm establishing the Sullivan Education Fund through the Community Foundation. Starting balance is $28,000. Former students from around the country have contributed. This fund will provide scholarships for Pinewood graduates who need help with college expenses. The room erupted. Cole saw Maggie's face crumple, saw David move to embrace his mother. Father and son, and 40 years of teaching, all converging in one moment. Sheriff Grady leaned close to Cole. Still planning to leave when the roof's done? Don't know anymore. Good. Uncertainty means you're thinking about it. That's progress. Bill Harrison from the hardware store took the podium. His announcement was brief but significant. Cole, on behalf of the town council, we fast-tracked your contractor license application. You're approved, and your first contract is city-funded. Renovate the community garden pavilion. Paid work, brother. Cole stood without meaning to. The room watched him, waiting. I appreciate that, sir, but I'm not sure I'm staying long enough to take on contracts. Then we'll wait, Harrison replied. Good contractors are hard to find. Great ones are worth waiting for. The job's yours when you're ready. Tom Murphy added his voice. Volunteer fire department meets Tuesday nights. Training starts next week. We need people with your skills. What do you say? The question hung in the air, everyone waiting for Cole's answer. He looked at Maggie, at David, at the faces watching him with hope and acceptance. I'll think about it. Laughter rippled through the room. Someone shouted, "That's what they all say." More laughter. The tension broke. Margaret gestured for quiet. Before dinner, Maggie has something to say. Maggie stood slowly, walked to the podium with dignity despite her tears. She gripped the wooden edge like it could anchor her. I don't have a speech prepared, she began. Public speaking was never my strength. I preferred one-on-one, student and teacher. That's where real learning happens. She looked around the room, met eyes, connected. 40 years ago, I walked into Pinewood High thinking I would teach literature, Shakespeare and Steinbeck and all the great voices of American writing. But I learned something those first few years. Teaching isn't about books. It's about people. Her voice grew stronger, more certain. It's about seeing potential in a troubled teenager, about staying after school with a struggling student, about spending your own money when a child needs books their family can't afford, about believing in someone when they can't believe in themselves. She pointed to faces in the crowd. Daniel Foster, you're here somewhere, federal judge now. I didn't make you a judge. I just showed you that Hamlet's struggle with honor and duty could teach you something about justice. A man in his 50s stood, raised his hand, nodded. Patricia Holloway, I didn't make you a doctor. I just saw what your family couldn't see during hard times. That you were brilliant. That poverty didn't define your potential. Patricia stood, blew Maggie a kiss across the crowded room. Danny Henderson, state trooper, I didn't give you courage. I just helped you understand that doing what's right matters more than doing what's easy. One by one, Maggie called them out. Teachers and soldiers and business owners and parents. Each one standing, each one remembering. The room became a living testament to 40 years of service. You all think I taught you, Maggie said, her voice thick now. But you taught me that one person armed with belief and determination can change the world. One student at a time, one conversation at a time, one act of faith at a time. She turned to Cole. This week, Cole Bennett reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That accepting help isn't weakness. That community means showing up. That integrity costs, but it's always worth the price. She gestured to David. My son came here convinced I couldn't take care of myself. He left understanding that independence isn't stubborn pride. It's the right to live with dignity and purpose, to matter, to contribute, to refuse to disappear just because you've aged. The room was silent except for scattered sniffling, grown men wiping eyes, women openly crying. This house, these letters, this life. Maggie's voice broke, steadied, continued. It's not about me, it's about all of us, about what we build together, about standing up for what matters even when it's hard, about refusing to let fear or age or circumstance diminish who we are. She smiled through tears. Thomas always said that legacy isn't what you leave behind when you die. It's what you build while you're alive, and ours, this community's legacy, is just beginning. The standing ovation lasted 2 full minutes. Cole watched Maggie absorb the love flowing toward her, watched her accept what she'd earned, watched her stand tall in the acknowledgement of a life well lived, and something in Cole's chest Something that had been frozen for 18 years began to thaw. Dinner was potluck abundance, casseroles and roasts and salads and desserts covering every available surface. People filled plates and found seats, and conversations bloomed like flowers after rain. Cole tried to stay invisible, failed. Former students wanted to shake his hand, thank him for helping Maggie. Veterans wanted to talk about service and brotherhood. Town council members wanted to discuss future projects. He was cornered by the coffee pot when the motorcycle sound interrupted everything. Different engine. Not a Harley, something smoother, more refined. The conversations near the window stopped. People turned to look. Cole felt his pulse quicken. No reason for it, just instinct honed by years of combat. Something important was arriving. The door opened. A woman in riding leather stepped through, 43 maybe, dark hair streaked with gray, helmet tucked under her arm, eyes scanning the room with military precision until they found Maggie. "Mrs. Sullivan?" Maggie's fork clattered to her plate. She stood so fast her chair scraped. "Rebecca?" "Yes, ma'am, Rebecca Crawford." The woman's voice cracked. "I've been riding 3 days to get here." The room went absolutely silent, everyone watching. History unfolding in real time. Maggie crossed the distance in seconds, embraced Rebecca like a long-lost daughter, both women crying, the kind of tears that come from places too deep for words. "I was in D.C. when I heard," Rebecca said into Maggie's shoulder. "Someone posted about the gathering on Facebook, about how you stood up to your son, how a veteran helped you, about the letters." She pulled back, reached into her jacket, pulled out a worn paperback book. The cover was creased, pages yellowed with age and use. "This is the copy of To Kill a Mockingbird you bought me in 1996. I was 14. My family had just lost our farm. We had nothing. I had no hope." Rebecca opened the book, showed Maggie the receipt still tucked inside the front cover. $27. "I know because I saw this. You left it in there. $27 you didn't have, for a girl you barely knew." "You were worth it," Maggie whispered. "I've carried this through college, through officer candidate school, through 6 deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq." Rebecca's voice grew stronger, military bearing reasserting itself. "I've read it 47 times, and every time I hear your voice explaining why it matters, why standing up for what's right matters, why seeing humanity in everyone matters." She turned to address the room. "I'm Captain Rebecca Crawford, U.S. Army Intelligence. I speak 7 languages. I've saved lives with information I've translated. I've prevented attacks. I've made a difference." Back to Maggie. "None of that happens without you, without this book, without you seeing worth in a scared, broken immigrant kid who didn't speak English and didn't believe she deserved kindness." Maggie held Rebecca's face between her hands. "You were never broken, just bent. And bent things can be straightened." Rebecca's eyes found Cole. Recognition passed between them, the kind only veterans share. "You must be the veteran who helped her." Cole stood. "James Bennett, ma'am. Cole." Rebecca snapped to attention, saluted with crisp precision. "Captain Rebecca Crawford, Afghanistan 2012 through 2018. Thank you for protecting one of ours, Sergeant." Cole returned the salute, muscle memory and respect. "Just doing what's right, Captain." "The best of us always do." The room erupted, applause and tears and the raw emotion of witnessing something profound. 2 generations of veterans saluting across a church fellowship hall. A teacher reunited with a student whose life she'd saved with a $27 book. The power of belief in service and refusing to give up on people made visible and real. Sophie, Rachel's daughter, appeared at Rebecca's side, 17 and uncertain but drawn by something she couldn't name. "You're Maggie's granddaughter," Rebecca said, not a question. "Yes, ma'am, Sophie." "Thinking about teaching?" Sophie's eyes went wide. "How did you know?" "Because you're at an event honoring your grandmother, reading 418 letters, crying at every story. That's a teacher's heart." Rebecca smiled. "Is it worth it, teaching?" "I don't know yet. Look around this room." Rebecca gestured at the gathered crowd. Doctors, lawyers, soldiers, teachers. All here because one woman believed in them. Is that worth it? Sophie's smile started small, grew to something radiant. Yes, yes it is. The evening wound down slowly, people lingering, not wanting to leave. The gathering had become something more than appreciation. It had become communion, reconnection, remembering. Cole found himself on the church steps with Tom Murphy and Sheriff Grady. Three veterans watching the parking lot empty. You going to stay? Grady asked. Direct, no preamble. Still thinking about it. Don't think too long, Tom said. Opportunity doesn't wait forever. Neither does purpose. What if I'm not ready? Nobody's ever ready. Tom lit a cigarette despite his wife's standing prohibition. I wasn't ready when I stopped in Pinewood 45 years ago. Car broke down. I was just waiting for parts. 45 years later, I'm still waiting. What changed? I stopped running long enough to notice I'd found something worth staying for. Community, purpose, Maggie Sullivan teaching my kids, Bill Harrison selling me hardware. These people becoming my family without me noticing. Sheriff Grady nodded. Same here. Came to Montana to disappear after Rangers. Thought I'd hide in the mountains and drink myself to death like a proper broken veteran. Instead, I found people who needed protecting. Town that needed a sheriff who understood what service meant. He looked at Cole. You're running from ghosts. I get it. But you can't outrun them. They ride behind you no matter how fast you go. Only way to deal with ghosts is to stop and face them. Let them have their say. Then build something new in spite of them. Cole thought about Martinez, about the phone call, about 18 years of guilt beginning to loosen its grip. I called Martinez yesterday, first time in 18 years. How'd that go? He's married, 2 kids, teaching high school, living the life I gave him when I pulled him out of that IED blast. And the 2 who died? He said they wouldn't want me running, that they did died so we could live, that wasting that gift dishonors their sacrifice. Tom stubbed out his cigarette. Smart man, you should listen to him. David appeared in the doorway. Cole, Mom wants to talk to you before she leaves. Maggie sat in the now empty fellowship hall, surrounded by photographs in the lingering warmth of community love. She looked small in the big space, tired but content. Quite a night, Cole said. Quite a week. Maggie patted the chair beside her. Sit, I want to ask you something. Cole sat, waited. The garage apartment. I'm serious about the offer. Not just a place to sleep, a real home. Base of operations for Bennett Home Services. Whatever you want to call your business. Mrs. Sullivan, I appreciate it. But I don't know if I'm the settling down type. Thomas said the same thing. Month after we met. We were married 6 months later. Spent 49 years together before cancer took him. She smiled at the memory. Sometimes the right thing finds you when you stop looking. What if I leave? What if I take the apartment and 6 months from now the road calls and I disappear? Then you disappear. And I'll have had 6 good months with someone using Thomas's workshop. Someone keeping his tools sharp and his memory alive. That's worth the risk. Cole looked at his hands, calloused from work, scarred from war. I'm broken, ma'am. Martinez calls it PTSD. Doctors call it service-connected disability. I call it being haunted. Either way, I wake up screaming more nights than not. I don't know if I can live near people. Don't know if I can risk them seeing that. Thomas had nightmares for 15 years. I held him through every one. Talked him back from Chosin Reservoir 1,000 times. Maggie's voice went soft. Broken isn't the same as useless. And healing happens in community, not isolation. Let me help you the way you helped me. I fixed your roof. That's not the same. You did more than fix a roof. You reminded me that I matter, that my life has value, that dignity and independence are worth fighting for. She took his hand, squeezed with surprising strength. Let me return the favor. Let me show you that you matter too, that your life has value beyond war and ghosts and running. 2 months passed like a dream half remembered. Cole moved into the garage apartment on a Tuesday, spent 3 weeks renovating it to livable standards, installed new electrical, updated plumbing, built a bedroom loft and workshop space. Tom Murphy supervised and helped. David sent money. The town watched a broken-down garage become a home. Bennett Home Services opened for business on December 1st. Cole's first contract was the community garden pavilion. Second was electrical work for the Anderson family. Third was a full renovation of Dr. Morrison's old office building. Word spread, quality work, fair prices. A veteran who showed up on time and did what he promised. By Christmas, Cole had more contracts than he could handle alone. He hired 2 employees, both veterans, both struggling, both finding purpose in building things that mattered. The nightmares didn't stop, but they came less frequently. And when they came, Tom Murphy or Sheriff Grady or Bill Harrison would show up the next morning, coffee in hand, ready to listen or work or just sit in comfortable silence. Brotherhood took many forms. Martinez visited in January, brought his wife and kids. spent a week in Pinewood meeting the people who'd helped Cole stop running. The two men spent hours in Thomas's workshop, talking about Afghanistan, about Johnson and Williams, about survivor guilt and the weight of promises kept and broken. "I'm glad you stopped," Martinez said on the last night. "Glad you found this place, these people, yourself. I'm not sure I've found myself yet. You're looking, though. That's more than you were doing 6 months ago." Rachel Sullivan visited in February. David's sister brought Sophie, who wanted to see the grandmother she barely knew. The 3 generations of Sullivan women spent days in the study, reading letters, telling stories. Sophie soaked it up like parched ground, drinking rain. "I'm going to be a teacher," Sophie announced at dinner one night. "Like Grandma, like Rebecca. I want to see people the way they do." Maggie cried, happy tears. Legacy extending another generation. April brought warmth in the community garden grand opening. Cole had built the pavilion himself. Post and beam construction, open sides, cedar shake roof, benches surrounding a central teaching space. His best work. The kind of building that would stand 100 years. The dedication ceremony drew everyone. 418 letters had become invitations. 93 former students attended. Doctors and lawyers and teachers and soldiers. Everyone with a story about how Margaret Sullivan had changed their lives. The governor came. Media cameras. State news coverage. But Cole barely noticed. He stood in the back watching Maggie teach a workshop on composting and literature. Watching her show 15 high school students how books and gardens both required patience and faith and the willingness to plant seeds that might not bloom for years. Tom Murphy found him afterward. "You staying now, or still thinking about it?" Cole looked at the garden, at the people, at the community he'd become part of without meaning to. "I'm staying, at least until the work's done." "What work?" "All of it, the garden, the town, myself." Cole smiled. "Turns out there's always more work." "That's the secret," Tom said. "Purpose isn't a destination. It's a direction. Long as you're moving towards something instead of away from something, you're doing fine." 1 year after the roof, Cole and Maggie sat on her porch watching sunset paint the mountains gold. Daily ritual, 7 p.m. coffee and conversation. The rhythm of friendship and family. "Got a letter today," Maggie said. "Number 419. "Who from?" "Sophie, from college. Says her education professor assigned my teaching methods as case study. Wants me to guest lecture." "You going to do it?" "Of course, 79 isn't too old to teach." She sipped her coffee. "Speaking of which, Martinez called. Says he's bringing his family for summer vacation." "Good. I want his kids to meet the woman who helped me stop running." They sat in comfortable silence. The kind that only comes from knowing someone deeply, from trust earned through shared struggle. "You ever regret stopping?" Maggie asked. "That day on the motorcycle? You could have kept riding." Cole thought about it, really considered. "No, ma'am. Best decision I ever made." "Even though I'm bossy and stubborn?" "Because you're bossy and stubborn. You saved my life, Mrs. Sullivan, just like I saved your roof." "Fair trade, then." "More than fair." 2 motorcycles sat in the driveway. Maggie had bought a Yamaha in March, lighter, easier to handle than Thomas's old Harley. Cole had taught her to ride again. Every Sunday they explored back roads, chased sunrises, found the freedom Thomas had written about in his journal. Some journeys ended where they should have started. Some promises took 18 years to keep. And some strangers became family in the time it took to fix a roof and remember how to be human again. Cole Bennett had stopped running, found purpose, built something that mattered, and learned that home wasn't a place you were born, it was a place you chose, where you were needed, where you mattered, where you finally stopped running and let yourself be found. In Pinewood, Montana, population 1,847, a roof became a revolution. An elderly teacher's last stand became a community's rebirth. A broken veteran discovered that the road doesn't always lead away. Sometimes it leads home. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it leads to both. Epilogue. The dedication plaque on the community garden pavilion read simply, "Built by James Cole Bennett, veteran and friend, in honor of Margaret Sullivan, teacher and guide, and Thomas Sullivan, who showed us all that the road teaches freedom, but staying teaches love." Beneath the words, carved into cedar that would last generations, were 2 more lines. "Some promises take years to keep." This one was worth the wait. On Tuesday nights, the Pinewood Veterans Association met in the pavilion. Old wars and new, Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan, Korea and peacetime service. Men and women who'd seen things they couldn't unsee, but learned to live with the weight together. Cole Bennett taught construction skills to high school students every Thursday. Sophie Sullivan helped when she came home from college. 17 kids learned to measure twice and cut once, to respect materials and take pride in work, to build things that would outlast them. And every morning at 7, Cole and Maggie drank coffee in her kitchen, talked about the day ahead, made plans for projects and gardens, and the quiet satisfaction of work that mattered. Martinez called every October, the anniversary of the IED blast. But now Cole answered. Now they talked for hours. About families and teaching in the strange paths that led home. Johnson and Williams were still dead. That would never change. But their deaths had purchased life for Martinez. For Cole. For everyone those two men touched afterward. The debt could never be repaid. But it could be honored through service, through building, through refusing to waste the gift their sacrifice had given. Some nights the nightmares still came, but they came less often. And when they did, Cole knew where to find coffee and brotherhood and the understanding that only comes from shared wounds. He'd stopped running, found home, built legacy, and learned that broken things given time and care and community could be made whole again. Not perfect, not unmarked, but whole, and that was enough. In Pinewood, Montana, where mountains touched sky and communities still remembered how to care for their own, Cole Bennett had finally found what 18 years of running couldn't give him. Peace, purpose, home. The roof held firm through every winter. The garden grew, the letters multiplied, and the legacy of service continued. One student, one veteran, one act of faith at a time. Some promises you kept. Some promises kept you. And the best ones did both. The end.